In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can draw this cute cartoon seahorse from start to finish using the iPad in Procreate. It's all in real time too, so you can follow along every single step of the way. Let's go ahead and jump into it. All right guys, so let's go ahead and draw a cute cartoon seahorse. Starting out, I'm using a 4000 pixel by 4000 pixel 300 dpi canvas. It's an RGB canvas. For my brush, I'm going to start out sketching with my cartoon sketch pencil. This is part of my cartooning pack for Procreate. And then we're going to switch over to the Streamline Inker later on once we go to ink. And then also my color palette. Once again, got this pre-made. So if you want to download the exact same colors that I'm using in today's video, you can get that for free on my website. If you go to bjdell.com, underneath the YouTube reference materials page, you'll find a link to that. It's also linked down in the description below. And then finally, on my Apple Pencil, I'm using the Pro Draw Grip. The Pro Draw Grip gives you more comfort, better line control. I started the company last year, designed this from the ground up for other digital artists like yourself to kind of solve some of those problems that we experience as iPad artists. So let's go ahead and jump into it. This is linked down in the description below too. Starting out, I'm just going to use the blue to start with my sketch. And once again, just basically using simple shapes to start roughing out the idea. So we're gonna have the seahorse, I think, in kind of like a profile view. So this is gonna be the head, just a basic oval shape here. And then kind of following down here around the back, start to bring in a curved line here for the back. Kind of have it start to curve back out a little bit, halfway down, and then curve back in. So just kind of getting the curve of the line that I want, following that line around, and back into the head. Okay, so that's going to be the back. From here then, I'm going to draw another oval here. This is going to kind of be the cheek. Once again, we're in that profile view here. And then we'll draw another oval up here for where the eye goes. I'm going to start to give a profile view to this eye. So we're going to have a pretty sharp, heavy turn or curve here for the back of the eye. And the front is going to have a curve, but you see it's not as curved. It's more of a up and down. And then we can get the pupil and the iris in there. You can see that we kind of have that nice profile view, not a 3/4 view, but a profile view there. We get an eyebrow in here. And start to kind of define this cheek. Darken that up. Okay. And then as the head comes around here, we're going to start to pull it in and then back out. So it's got a curve in and then back out for the snout here. We'll do the same curve here at the bottom, just going down. Kind of curving the ends there. All right, and then we can just darken everything back up here. Now for the belly. So we're going to start with a curve here that kind of comes out in the same direction of this, and that's going to pull back in here. So the belly kind of juts out here. And as this tail comes down, it's going to start to narrow in. So you see here it's wider, and then here it starts to narrow up towards that end part. Okay, we'll draw another curved line here to break up that belly. Just like that. From here then, I'm going to draw kind of an oval back here for this fin. So I can kind of visualize how much space I want it to take up. I'll curve it back out towards the body there. And then finally here, I'm just going to start to draw the fins that come around the head. We'll have those in there at the back of the body before it comes into the fin for the body. And then just kind of darkening up as we come back around. All right, and there's the sketch of our little seahorse. Really cute, really simple. Now's when we go in, start to add more details, kind of fine tune everything, make it look a little bit more finished, a little bit more professional, and that's adding the inks for the next step. So let's go ahead and do that now. To begin with the inks, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come up here to the layers menu. I'm gonna make a new layer on top of layer 1. This is gonna be our inks. Then I'm gonna open the blend mode here for the opacity slider. We're gonna drop this down to about 30%. We want to be able to see it, but we don't want it to be too dark because we're going to draw on top of it. Now I'm going to grab the color palette, and I've got this dark purple color here. That's going to be the color that we're going to use for the inks. With that selected then, I'm going to switch my brush over to that standard inker streamline. And I've got this set to 8% for the size. So if you're using the same size canvas and want the same general thickness of lines, 8% is where I'm at. So now that we've got that, I'm going to go ahead and start inking. I'm going to have the light source coming in from this top right-hand corner. So the lines here towards the front are going to be a little bit thinner just because that's where the light source is going to be coming from. Around here to the back, that's going to be where the shadows are. It's going to be a little bit thicker lines back there. So I'm going to zoom in here so we can see a little bit better. I'm going to start right here in the middle with this cheek here. So I'm just going to bring that line around with some nice tapers there on the end. I'll just continue up here into the eye, and you can see here a little bit thinner line. It gets thicker as it comes back down and around, and a little bit thinner here towards the front. I'm going to grab my eraser now. Holding down on the eraser, we'll select that same brush that I'm using to ink with, and then I'm just going to erase that overlap and kind of fine tune that line back there. All right, back to my brush now. Go ahead and get the pupil in here. Make it a little bit bigger so it fills up that whole section there at the bottom. Then we'll bring a thinner line here around for the iris. Just like that. And then I'm going to hold down here in the background to select white. And using white, come in here and do some highlights there inside the eye. That done then, I'm going to come back and hold down to select that purple. And then I'm going to zoom out, and I think I'm going to do this line here. This is going to be a massive line. So we'll start here. I think I'm going to have an overlap. Let's do this overlap first. So we'll get a fairly thick line in here. I'm going to do a tapered line here, back up and around. And now this is the line that's going to be big. So we're going to start out with a tapered line here coming in, and I'll bring this all the way around here, back down to the bottom and back up here. This is one of those big lines that might take a couple of times trying it to get, number one, to get the line weights correct. Then number two, just get the overall shape correct. See, I pulled out a little bit too far. I never try to trace my sketch lines because I like to keep the organic feel that it has, but sometimes like this, I want it to be close when I'm in an area like this or a part of the design like this where it's the overall shape and it's a pretty big curve. I think that is about the best I'm gonna do right now without doing it over and over again. So if you don't get it the first few times, feel free just to try it over and over again if you need to. All right, zooming back down here so we can see, I'm gonna pull in this line here to the tail. Actually, let's pull around to the belly here. I think that's gonna work better. So we'll pull line here around for the belly, and then this line in here is gonna be a lot thinner of a line. Just like that. See, since this is on the inside, we want those lines to be thinner than the lines on the outside. All right, next up, I'm gonna work on this fin, and I'm gonna twist the canvas here because I know my arm's gonna work a lot better in this direction. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to make a new layer now. Because of this overlap here, I can draw on this new layer, and when I have to erase this, I'm on a separate layer. So I don't have to worry about hitting the lines that I just drew. So back to my brush here. And we'll just pull this around like that. I'm going to use the eraser here to even these up. And then just a tapered line there. Some little squiggles just to make it look cool. All right, so that's what we're left with. Now I can go back to that layer 2, select that. I can grab my eraser. You can see now I can erase that overlap section, and I don't have to worry about hitting those lines that I just did. Makes it super easy. You don't have to be as careful when you're doing the lines, and you're able to have a lot more control over where they start, where they end at that way. All right, continuing on now, I can come back up here and I can go ahead and pinch those together if I want. Or if I have other overlap areas later, I could leave them so that way I don't have to redo them, but however you want to do it. Then we'll start here on these lines. Once again, a little bit thinner there at the front and then thickening up as we go down here in the back. Try that one more time. Connect this one down. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit better so I can match those up. All right. And then I'm just going to come around here and start to pull in some tapered lines. Coming back into where those lines meet then. So this has a little bit of depth and dimension to it, and you can kind of see what's going on. Pull them back out then. That's what we're left with. All right, let's go ahead and add in some lines here across the belly. So once again, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so we can see here. And once again, thin lines in here. We'll see I've got one coming here towards the top, one coming out towards the bottom. Just like that. Then finally, let's go ahead and get the eyebrow in there. So a heavier line here at the bottom, lighter line towards the top. See that line weight just gives a nice weight to the bottom. I'm going to grab the arrow and circle this with freehand. I'm going to move this up just a tad bit. So I'm going to do a little bit of a taper line here for an eyelid there at the top. All right, pulling back out then, you can see what we're left with. So that's going to be the basic sketch and then the inks to this. From here, we're ready to go ahead and move on and start the coloring process. So to add the color flats here, what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to our layers menu. I'm going to make a new layer on top of our lines. I'm going to drag this down underneath. So we've got the lines here. We've got what's going to be our color flats here, and we can go ahead and turn off our sketch layer now. The lines layer, we want to tap this. We want to set this as reference so we can drag and drop our colors on to that layer 3. So just going to use those lines as a guide so we know exactly where the colors are going to go to. And then I've got this light purple color here. We're going to use that for the body, so we'll drag and drop that in. Next up, we've got this lighter kind of mossy green color. We'll use that for the belly. I'm going to hit continue filling here. And we'll use that. Let's go ahead and do it for that part too. And then finally, I've got this darker green, or like a sea foam. We'll go ahead and use that there. Actually, let's go ahead and use that for this one down here too. I think that one will look better, that color. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and add in, I don't have this on the color palette. I'm going to do a little bit of a darker purple here. We'll use that for the eyebrow. So I'll add that in down here so you'll see that come up on your color palette. And then let's go ahead, let's use that darker, let's use this one here. We'll use that green for the iris there. And then finally, holding down in the background here to select white, I'm just gonna drag and drop that in for the eye itself. So there we go, there's the color flats, super fast, super easy. I think looking at it though, color flat wise, I think we need to add in some inks and some color flats because I wanna add in some dots, some spots around the seahorse. So if I go back to my initial inks color and I come here into my lines layer, let's use that and zoom in here before we jump off the color flats. Let's just add in kind of spots around here. Really no rhyme or reason to this, just kind of lining them up wherever. Key here is just using lighter lines than what we're using there on the outlines. And with that done now, we can go back to our color flats layer using that belly color here. We'll use that for these spots. And then continue filling here. I think that just adds a lot more to the overall design, having those in there. So looks good. So color flats are done. Next up, let's go ahead and work on our shadows and our highlights. So let's do that next. To begin, we're gonna come up here to the layers menu. I'm gonna make a new layer on top of my color flats. I'm gonna tap that one, set it as clipping mask. So now anything that we draw on this layer is only gonna show up on the parts that are colored in down here, which really makes this process a lot easier. With that done then, let's go ahead and grab our color palette. I've got this dark midnight blue. We'll use that for our shadows. And I'm gonna come in here and just kind of start to get some big areas blocked in. Now, of course, this looks really dark, but we are going to adjust the opacity on this. So it's not going to be just big blotches of blue, so don't worry. This just gives us the ability to kind of see where we're working at, where we want to get these in. Once again, that light source is coming in from that top right-hand corner. Just hitting down here along the bottom area here, probably a little bit here on this cheek. At the bottom, not the top. We're gonna highlight the top. I'm just basically trying to make this curve follow the same curve that I used for that cheek without going up too far, because once again, we want to keep that area open up there for the highlights. All right. Same thing here underneath the chin or the cheek. Get a shadow in there. Kind of come around here and start pulling shadows in behind the head. And once I have enough areas filled in, we'll go ahead and drop the opacity and then continue the shadows. I just want to make sure once I drop that numerical value down that it looks the right way across all the different colors that I'm using. Sometimes I've talked about this before, you'll have to actually use multiple shadow layers or multiple highlight layers because what looks good percentage-wise on one color might not look good on the next color. Just get a couple of more areas here filled in. Just coming on the underside or the back side of these lines. You can see they just tapered down into that line that I've already done. All right, and I think that's enough right now. So we're gonna come up to our layers, hit the end for blend mode, and we'll start to drop this down. Maybe about 32, 33%. I think that looks pretty good. Then I can come back in and just start to fill in areas that I think need a little bit more. We can also use some tapered lines out here too. If we want to add some shadows in with those, we don't have to use those just for the inks. So we can kind of continue that around. So it's kind of the reverse of what we did there at the top. Adds a little bit more in. Same thing here, kind of pulling in underneath these lines, zooming in so you can see a little bit better. Just again, having them taper in there towards that light source. They're thicker there at the back. And pulling some more down here underneath these. That one went a little far up there. Okay, looks good. Pulling some here in the back and then underneath. This fin here will be the next part. Maybe a little bit here. Someone's at the door. All right, there we go. So that's going to be pretty much it for that color. Now let's go ahead and switch over to, I've got this blue that we use for the sketch. We can use that to come in here and pull in some shadows with this blue around the back. Couple dots there. All right, and I think that looks pretty good. So I think that's gonna be it on the shadows. Next up then, let's go ahead and use that same technique and let's do some highlights. So here we're gonna go up to our layers menu, just like we did with the shadows. We're gonna make a new layer on top of this. We're gonna tap that, set that as clipping mask. And then coming back up here, I've got this kind of bright greenish blue color. We'll use that for our highlights. Zoom in here so we can see a little bit better and start to pull around our cheek highlight first. And this is where I talked about I don't want those hitting, so I'm going to have to kind of fine tune once I get that in there. I'm going to remove and then build back up and remove and build back up until these kind of come in. And don't touch, but they keep that same curve that I'm looking for. That's on the top there. Okay. Continuing around here, get the front of that eyelid there. It also gives that a little bit more definition because we didn't continue that line all the way down. Pull in a highlight here towards the front. So again, just trying to keep with that same twist that we had with the outlines here. And you'll see the process here that I'm using, just basically doing the line. If it comes too far, that's okay. Just go back in with the eraser, erase till you get it to look right, and then build it back up if you need to do that again. I'll do a oval highlight here on the cheek. It looks pretty good. Continue up here. And we'll also pull some around on these spots so that those aren't just one solid color. They've actually got some difference in values there. All right, before we go crazy with it then, I think we were pretty good as far as the different colors. So let's go ahead and drop the opacity then to see what we're looking at. So N for blend mode, drop this down to about 38%, looks pretty good. And then here we can also come in and add some big areas. So let me pull in a chunk here. I'm going to turn off reference now so I can drag and drop this color in. So we had to come back to the lines to do that. Drag and drop this in. We'll just get some kind of geometric lines in there. And then just coming back in with the eraser to fine tune it. And you can kind of see now how those play. We've got 3 different values there. We've got the base color, the highlights, and the shadows. And it really makes that back part quite a bit more interesting there. And once again, just coming in with the eraser to kind of get some nice sharp edges there. Eraser again. You can kind of see then what we've got. I think that looks pretty good. We'll do the same thing here on the fin. Get some decent sized areas filled in, and you can tell this is really sloppy right here. I just want to get a good portion filled in there so I can go in and just erase here. So just throw it in there to get it in to begin with. Don't worry about getting it perfect. Do the same thing here. That one, I want to put that further towards the front here. So we get a bigger area here towards the front and then start to pull it away. And then if you don't like it, you can always grab the transform or the select tool, sorry, and then just kind of reposition it too. If you want to do that, you can. Kind of continue on down here. Again, just getting a decent area filled in and then coming back out and knocking it back. I want this to have more of a curve. That's why I didn't like this one initially. Just didn't have enough of a curve there like the belly had. Build it up one more time. Yeah, that's good enough. All right, pulling back out, you can kind of see what we've got there. I think I'm going to do a little bit here on the tail. Get a tapered one there. A little bit of an oval there. And then from here, if we want to add some more little dots like that, we can with the highlights. We can pull around the front of these again. Those already have the shadow, so I probably won't there. Or we could also come back in here too with that main base color that we had for the inks. Selecting that and coming back to our lines layer, we could add in little texture dots here. I like to do that sometimes. Not to go overboard with them and put them everywhere, but you know, just a couple here, a couple there, and then a couple of fun tapered lines like this coming around. Whatever you think you can do to add to the design. Like I said, without going overboard, feel free to play around. So there we go. There's our finished design. From here, let's go ahead and add in a background real quick. So I'm going to come up here to my layers menu. I'm going to come down to the very bottom and we'll make a new layer at the bottom. Back up to my color palette and I've got this blue color here. We'll use that for the background. And then I'm just gonna come in and just kind of make a funky shape here in the background and then connect it there. That connected, I'm just gonna drag and drop my color. And then from here, I'm gonna come up to my layers menu. I'm gonna tap that layer and I'm gonna set it as alpha lock. So we're gonna add in a gradient to this. Alpha lock's a little bit different than clipping mask, works somewhat the same way, as in when we color now, it's only gonna show up on the area we have colored on the blue. Difference being here though, it's actually on the same layer as the blue. So when I was going back in here and erasing these areas and fine tuning, that's only possible because of clipping mask. If we would do that same thing here, it would actually erase our background blue because it's all in the same layer. So that's why clipping mask is good. It's not destructive. Here though, we need to use this because we're gonna make a gradient. We're gonna use some adjustments. So with that selected and alpha locked, I'm gonna come back up to my color palette. I've got this kind of purplish blue here. We'll use that. I'm gonna switch over to my bold inker now and just fill in the bottom here with our color. And then I'm gonna come up here to my adjustments and use Gaussian blur here. So we'll select that. Sliding that to the right, then you can see we've got this nice kind of gradient going to the back. This is just using two colors. You could do this and do a darker color down here and a lighter color up here and have even more of a change between those. So feel free to do that if you want. And then with my eraser, I'm gonna switch over to my standard inker eraser here. And I'm just gonna pull some tapered lines out of the back here. Coming down. These are all at that same angle, just to add some extra stuff here in the background. And once again, here you can see that these, I'm using different line weights and those tapers on the end, just to add a little bit there in the back. Okay, finally then, let's make another new layer here. And I'm gonna select that blue that we used for the background. And I'm gonna make a round circle or oval, hold it down so it becomes a circle. Then drag and drop my color in there. And we'll just repeat this a few times. And we'll make some bubbles. Make it bigger. A dot's too small. All right, there we go. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use white just by holding down there in the background, selecting that, and we'll erase some little highlights on these bubbles. Here's usually where I would zoom in really tight so I can get those, but I won't worry about that here for this. And then we can drop the opacity of these so they look a little bit more clear, see-through. And then finally, I'm just gonna make a new layer and grab my original color for my lines. We'll zoom in here and get this guy signed. And we will be done with today's tutorial. So there you go, how to draw a cute little baby seahorse. Today's tutorial. Appreciate you guys following along. If you liked today's video, if you got some valuable information out of it, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and hit that bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. And if you do follow along with any of these tutorials and you're online, definitely urge you to post your work there and share it. So if you're on Instagram or Twitter, definitely post it there, tag me at BJ Dell so I can get a chance to check them out. I love seeing your guys' work, just like all these people that followed along with my last tutorial about how to draw the cartoon snake. These just turned out amazing and I love to see it when you guys follow along to these. So thanks so much. As for me, I can also be found online, bjdell.com. And that, my friends, is it for today's tutorial. Once again, thanks for watching. And until next time, keep creating.